and the contribution that Kenya continues to make to Pan-Africanism. I invite Kenyans and I urge Kenyans to be willing to share your president with the rest of the continent, because the continent needs his leadership. Today, Your Excellencies, is an important day. The East African community's commitment to regional integration, industrial development, innovation, and empowering young people and SMEs reflects the broader ambitions of the African Union and the AFCFTA in particular, to build a single market, to create opportunities for young people and MSMEs, to connect our regions, and to strengthen the value chains that will continue to power Africa's industrial development. Indeed, the East African community is a very strong collaborator and a building block upon which the AFCFTA is founded. The African community, particularly in the area of free movement of business persons, as well as empowering young people, is a shining example of what our continent can achieve. As the EAC celebrates its achievements in regional integration, the AFCFTA, as a legal framework, provides the platform to translate this regional success into continental and global competitiveness. It is more than a trade agreement, the AFCFTA. It is a catalyst for industrial development, as I mentioned, for innovation, and for inclusive growth in country and amongst countries. To date, 50 countries have ratified the agreement establishing the AFCFTA, with Somalia being the most recent member of the African Union to ratify the agreement. Over 25 tariff offers have been gazetted. Certificates of origin are being issued as we speak, which demonstrates that trade is taking place. And we are encouraged that this trade is taking place in Africa's sector of the economy that requires value addition, such as food processing, beverages, textiles and clothing, manufactured goods, and pharmaceutical products. Through its protocols on investment, intellectual property rights, competition policy, digital trade, and most recently adopted the Protocol on Women and Youth in Trade, the AFCFTA is laying a very strong foundation for sustainable, fair, and inclusive growth across our continent. Your Excellencies, as we've heard this morning, MSMEs are the backbone of Africa's economy, accounting for up to 80% of jobs created and more than half of Africa's GDP. Yet they continue to confront challenges: trade finance that has been mentioned, lack of access to markets, lack of market intelligence, and persistent non-tariff barriers that constrain trade across regions. Within the framework of the AFCFTA's private sector strategy, the identification of priority private sector value chains that we identified as an opportunity. In the area of agriculture and agro-processing, the automotive sector, particularly components manufacturing, agriculture, as I mentioned, pharmaceuticals, transport and logistics, we see a value proposition for investment of over $130 billion, which will see commercially priced returns on investment and, of course, translate into jobs at local level. These are not transitional projects, but long-term foundations of Africa's industrial transformation. By participating in these value chains and encouraging investment in these value chains, I believe that our regional economic communities, East African community in particular, and MSMEs from across our regions do have an opportunity to become service providers, to be part of value chains, to be innovators, and to directly connect with this market of 1.4 billion people with a combined GDP of 3.4 trillion United States dollars. Allow me to set out a few updates on what has been achieved in establishing continental value chains. In the area of the automotive sector, the rules of origin have now been concluded, which means that we have an opportunity to unlock opportunities for production of vehicles and components across the African continent. In this regard, we have secured a financing facility of $1.2 billion from Afrexim Bank to ensure that no country is left behind, whether it is a producer of a vehicle or a producer of a component. This is where an opportunity lies for MSMEs. In agriculture and agro-processing, in partnership with the MasterCard Foundation and Trademark Africa, we are implementing a 4-year fisheries program focused on women and youth-led MSMEs in cross-border trade. Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and the DRC are some of the countries in the East African community participating in this pilot, which is projected to create over 240,000 jobs and boost fish trade production by over $100 million by the year 2030. In the area of textiles and clothing, which is equally a driver of Africa's employment, I'm happy to report to you that rules of origin have been also concluded, as well as a landmark agreement to ban second-hand clothing, which for a very long time has been a source of market displacement in our continent. By this decision, the Assembly of Heads of States and Government has taken a commitment to protect Africa's textiles industries, attract new investment, and reinforce value chain, value production in Africa. In the area of pharmaceuticals, working with the Africa CDC, the AFCFTA Secretariat is advancing on a pooled procurement mechanism to aggregate demand and guarantee markets for pharmaceutical production, again, in Africa. This initiative is intended to strengthen local production, to create opportunities for supply chain resilience, and reduce imports of pharmaceutical products into our continent. To empower our MSMEs directly, we are encouraging the establishment of AFCFTA trading companies that will aggregate production from small producers to regional and global markets. These aggregators consolidate production, ensure standards compliance, and improve access to finance and logistics. Kenya, Ghana, Egypt, Rwanda, and South Africa have already established these AFCFTA trading companies intended to drive aggregation of production for market access. Cabinet Secretary mentioned the digital economy. The backbone of the AFCFTA will be to digitize our trade. That is why the e-tariff book of the AFCFTA, the electronic rules of origin, and other digital tools that have been deployed shall enable and empower SMEs to make informed decisions about the markets that they wish to export to and to connect to new markets across our continent. Your Excellencies, as the AFCFTA Secretariat, we congratulate the East African community on this 25-year milestone that we are celebrating today. And the message is quite clear. Regional value chains are the foundation of continental competitiveness. We witnessed this during the COVID-19 pandemic. East Africa's achievements in agro-processing, leather, textiles, pharmaceuticals, and the digital economy provide a very strong basis for expansion into new markets within the framework of the AfCFTA. In an era that is increasingly defined by the weaponization of trade, the weaponization of industrial policy, the weaponization of tariffs, the weaponization of investment policy, our continent must urgently accelerate the development of our own resilient value chains. And this is why we fully support the initiative that Madam Executive Director of ITC mentioned and reported, mobilization of ministers and SMEs to provide support to enable our SMEs to continue to be the backbone of Africa's industrial development. And so as we pursue inclusive growth, we must ensure that the benefits of integration reach every part of our continent, every company, every informal trader, every smallholder farmer must benefit from this market of 1.4 billion people. That is why the Protocol on Women and Youth in Trade is so absolutely critical. Not only should we celebrate this protocol because it is the first of its kind around the world, but I believe we should celebrate this protocol because it enables us to transcend beyond sentimental aspirations about creating opportunities for women-led MSMEs and young people, but it enables us to codify into legally binding obligations the opportunities that we believe are required in order to see this inclusive growth that all of us desire. As I conclude, let me say the following. I've had the opportunity to have discussions with our commercial banks and our development finance institutions over the last 5 years regarding this question of trade finance. My conclusion is that the challenge is not lack of liquidity. Rather, the challenge is to ensure the bankability of our SMEs, the bankability of our informal traders, the bankability of our smallholder farmers, to ensure that they have access to affordable trade finance that will enable them to expand beyond their regions onto other parts of the continent. In this regard, we commit to work with our partners, including the UN, its agencies, the development finance institutions in Africa, to mobilize our development finance institutions and private capital and commercial banks to ensure the affordability of the capital that we know is there. This will require that we move beyond, of course, the platitudes that we make about SMEs to develop an action plan that will jointly be presented to our commercial banks, to our development finance institutions, to ensure that we reduce the cost of trade finance. We have already initiated these discussions, and as I mentioned a few minutes ago, we are aware that the capital does exist. What we have to focus on is how to unlock that capital. For example, the African Development Bank alone has a facility of $2.5 billion intended for women-led SMEs. The question is, how do we work together to unlock access to that capital? This, I believe, where we are able to ensure the bankability of our SMEs, herein lies the opportunity to accelerate the industrial development of our continent. Markets have dried up. AGOA is gone. 15 up to 50% tariffs on imports into the United States from African countries. Many countries in Africa, including Kenya, Somalia, South Africa, Ghana, Angola, Nigeria, Madagascar, as a result of these tariffs, and as a result of the expiry of AGOA, have lost market share in the US. Where do these products go to? We have a market here on our continent of 1.4 billion people. However, it is a deeply fragmented market. That is why we have to accelerate the implementation of the AfCFTA as a tool for integration and creating a single market. Our continent has no business, absolutely no business, begging a third country for market access. We have a vibrant economy, we have a youthful continent, we have SMEs that are competitiveness, potentially, where they gain the support that is required to enable them to trade and expand their businesses. What we do require is to ensure applications of the rules of the AfCFTA in the creation of a single market. Although many countries that I've mentioned will suffer in the short term as a result of the expiry of AGOA, and in particular, our SMEs will suffer in the short term as a result of the expiry of AGOA, as a result of the imposition of these unlawful tariffs. I believe that in the medium to long